My beloved child, don't skip. Listen carefully because this story begins with words that no one ever wants to hear, yet sometimes the most painful moments become the beginning of the greatest transformation. Stay till the end because what happened next changed everything. For days, maybe even weeks, it felt as though something had shifted beneath the surface. The conversations became shorter. The warmth seemed to fade. The silence between you grew heavier than the words you once shared. You searched your heart for answers, wondering if you had done something wrong. But the truth was far more complicated than it first appeared. They convinced themselves that leaving was the easiest choice. Not because your love lacked value, but because they believed they could no longer carry the weight of their own fears. Every time they looked at the future, uncertainty stood in front of them like an impossible mountain. Instead of facing those emotions, they chose distance. They told themselves that walking away would protect both of you from more pain. Yet deep inside, even as they made that decision, their heart was quietly resisting every step. Don't skip. This changes everything. Outwardly, they appeared calm, almost certain. They smiled when people asked how they were doing. They acted as though everything was under control. But the moment they were alone, the mask disappeared. Questions flooded their mind. Was leaving really the right decision? Had fear disguised itself as wisdom? Were they giving up on something genuine simply because they were afraid of being vulnerable? Those questions echoed through every quiet night, refusing to let them rest. The shocking decision they made was not to leave you for another person who loved them more. It was to leave in pursuit of a life they imagined would be easier, a life without emotional risk, without difficult conversations, and without the possibility of heartbreak. They believed that by walking away from the relationship, they could escape the responsibility of confronting their deepest insecurities. For a brief moment, that choice felt like freedom. But freedom without peace quickly became another kind of prison. Listen carefully because something huge is waiting for you. The days that followed were not what they expected. The excitement of starting over faded faster than they imagined. Busy schedules, new surroundings, and different faces filled the empty spaces, but none of it reached the part of their heart where your memory remained. They began to understand that changing their circumstances had not changed what they truly felt inside. Wherever they went, the lessons your love had taught them quietly followed. They remembered the way you encouraged them during their lowest moments. They remembered your patience when they struggled to express themselves. They remembered how safe they felt whenever you believed in them. Those memories returned unexpectedly, not to punish them, but to remind them of what genuine connection had felt like. Suddenly, the life they thought they wanted seemed strangely incomplete. Stay till the end because what happened next changed everything. One evening, while sitting alone in complete silence, they finally admitted a truth they had spent months avoiding. They had not walked away because you were unworthy. They had walked away because they doubted themselves. They feared they could never become the partner your love deserved. Rather than risking failure, they chose distance. Rather than asking for understanding, they chose silence. That realization broke something inside them, but it also began healing something they had ignored for far too long. For the first time, they stopped blaming circumstances. They stopped blaming timing. They even stopped blaming you. Instead, they looked honestly at their own fears. They realized that running away had never solved anything. It had only delayed the conversation they needed to have with themselves. Growth began quietly, one honest thought at a time. Every difficult realization became another step toward becoming someone stronger, wiser, and more emotionally open. Meanwhile, your own journey had been changing as well. The heartbreak had taught you resilience. The unanswered questions had taught you patience. The silence had shown you that your worth does not depend on another person's decisions. You learned to stand on your own, to protect your peace, and to continue growing even when life refused to give immediate answers. Without realizing it, you became stronger than you had ever been before. Don't skip. This is the turning point. One day they looked back, not with pride over leaving, but with humility. They realized that genuine love is not something easily replaced. It is something that leaves a lasting imprint on the heart. They understood that every relationship after yours had quietly reminded them of what authenticity truly looked like. They could imitate the memories, but they could never recreate the sincerity they once experienced with you. Whether your paths eventually crossed again or continued separately, one truth became impossible to ignore. Real love changes people. Sometimes it brings two hearts back together. Sometimes it teaches each person to become healthier before moving forward. Either way, the connection was never meaningless. It became the reason both of you discovered courage, compassion, and emotional maturity. My beloved child, remember this as the chapter closes: another person's decision does not determine your value. Love that is genuine leaves wisdom behind, even when it leaves questions. Never allow fear to convince you that your kindness was wasted or that your heart loved too deeply. Continue walking forward with hope, because the greatest victory is not holding on to someone at any cost. It is becoming the strongest, kindest, and most authentic version of yourself. And sometimes, that transformation becomes the beginning of a future more beautiful than you ever imagined. My beloved child, don't skip. Listen carefully, because after what seemed like the end, an unexpected chapter quietly began to unfold. Stay till the end because what happened next changed everything. The decision they once believed would bring them peace slowly revealed a different reality. Every morning they woke expecting the ache to become smaller, but instead they found themselves carrying an emptiness they could not explain. They had walked away hoping to escape difficult emotions, yet those emotions followed them into every new place, every new conversation, and every quiet moment when no one else was around. They finally understood that you can change your surroundings, but you cannot outrun the truth that lives inside your own heart. At first, they refused to admit what was happening. They convinced themselves they simply needed more time. They filled every hour with work, responsibilities, and endless distractions. They surrounded themselves with noise so they would never have to hear the silence inside. But every distraction eventually came to an end. Every busy day faded into another quiet night. And in those quiet hours, when the world finally slowed down, your memory returned with remarkable clarity. It wasn't just your smile they remembered. It was your kindness. Your patience. The way you made ordinary moments feel meaningful without even trying. Listen carefully. This changes everything. One evening, While looking through old memories they thought they had forgotten, they realized something that completely shook them. Every important chapter of their life somehow included you. Every lesson that helped them grow carried your influence. Every moment when they felt truly understood somehow led back to your presence. They sat there in complete silence, asking themselves one painful question over and over again: why did I only recognize your value after I chose to leave? That question echoed through their heart like a voice they could no longer ignore. Don't skip because something huge is waiting for you. The person they thought they were becoming without you turned out to be someone they barely recognized. They smiled in public, but the joy never reached their heart. They achieved goals they once dreamed about, but every accomplishment felt strangely incomplete. They met new people, yet every conversation reminded them of the honesty they once shared with you. Slowly, they realized they had not been searching for someone new. They had been searching for the peace they once felt when your heart was close to theirs. For the first time, they stopped pretending they had all the answers. Pride no longer felt important. Winning no longer mattered. Being right suddenly seemed meaningless compared to being honest. They admitted that fear had disguised itself as certainty. They admitted that walking away had been easier than facing their own insecurities. Those admissions were painful, but they also became the beginning of real healing. Sometimes the hardest truth to accept is that the greatest distance between two people is created not by miles, but by unspoken emotions. Stay till the end because what happened next changed everything. One quiet afternoon, they found themselves writing a letter they weren't sure they would ever send. Every sentence came straight from the heart. They apologized for the moments when fear made them distant. They admitted they had mistaken your quiet strength for indifference. They confessed that your love had always been genuine, even when they failed to appreciate it. They thanked you for believing in them during seasons when they struggled to believe in themselves. By the time they reached the final sentence, tears covered the page. It wasn't just a letter. It was the truth they had carried inside for far too long. Meanwhile, life had continued shaping you into someone even stronger. The pain that once felt unbearable had slowly become wisdom. The tears that once fell from heartbreak had become reminders of your resilience. You learned to smile again without depending on someone else's choices. You discovered that healing does not erase the past. It teaches you how to carry it without allowing it to control your future. Without realizing it, you became the person you needed during your hardest days, and that quiet transformation became your greatest victory. Listen carefully because this changes everything. They finally reached the point where they understood something many people never learn. Genuine love is not proven by grand gestures made at the last minute. It is proven by consistent honesty, emotional maturity, and the courage to accept responsibility for one's actions. Whether they would have another opportunity to express those feelings remained uncertain, but one thing was now undeniable: they would never again take a sincere heart for granted. As this chapter comes to an end, they stand at a crossroads unlike any they have faced before. One path leads back to silence, where fear continues making every decision. The other path requires courage, humility, and complete honesty. For the first time, they know exactly which path they want to choose. Their heart is no longer asking how to forget you. It is asking how to become someone worthy of the lessons your love has taught them. And as a new sunrise approaches, they quietly take their first step toward that future, because the next chapter will reveal the choice that could change both of your lives forever. My beloved child, don't skip. Listen carefully, because the story has reached the moment where silence can no longer hide the truth. Stay till the end because what happened next changed everything. After carrying the weight of regret for so long, your soulmate finally understood that every day they remained silent was another day they were allowing fear to control their future. Their heart had grown tired of pretending. Their mind had grown exhausted from replaying the same memories. Deep inside, they knew they were standing at the edge of a decision that would shape the rest of their journey. Something huge is waiting for you, because this was the first time they chose to listen to their heart instead of their fears. For hours, they sat alone, staring out the window as the rain slowly covered the streets below. The outside world seemed calm, but inside, a storm of emotions refused to settle. They remembered every promise they never made, every conversation they ended too quickly, and every moment they wished they had stayed just a little longer. Those memories no longer brought only sadness. They carried wisdom. They realized that life had been giving them lesson after lesson, trying to teach them that genuine love should never be treated as something that will always be there tomorrow. Some opportunities ask for courage today because tomorrow is never guaranteed. Listen carefully. This changes everything. They stopped asking themselves whether they deserved another chance. Instead, they began asking whether they had become someone capable of protecting the kind of love they once walked away from. That question changed the direction of their entire life. They started becoming more honest with themselves. They learned to apologize without defending their mistakes. They learned to listen instead of assuming. Most importantly, they learned that vulnerability is not a weakness but one of the greatest strengths a heart can possess. Those quiet changes happened day by day, unnoticed by most people, yet they completely transformed the person they were becoming. Don't skip because something huge is waiting for you. One evening, they opened an old notebook where they had once written down dreams for the future. As they turned each page, they noticed something that made their heart stop for a moment. In almost every dream, whether directly or indirectly, you were part of the picture. Not because everything revolved around you, but because you had inspired them to believe in a future filled with trust, kindness, and genuine companionship. Looking at those forgotten pages, they finally understood that the life they had imagined was never truly about success, money, or recognition. It had always been about sharing those moments with someone who made ordinary days feel extraordinary. As the days passed, they noticed another change inside themselves. They no longer wanted to run from difficult conversations. They no longer wanted to hide behind excuses or wait for perfect timing. They understood that perfect timing rarely exists. Love grows when two people are willing to show up honestly, even while carrying imperfections. Every lesson they had learned through loneliness had prepared them for this realization. The pain had not been meaningless. It had become a teacher leading them toward emotional maturity. Stay till the end because what happened next changed everything. One quiet morning, before the rest of the world had fully awakened, they made a promise to themselves. No matter what the future held, they would never again let fear make decisions that belonged to love. Whether life offered another opportunity or simply another lesson, they would meet it with honesty instead of avoidance. That promise brought them a peace they had not felt in a very long time. For the first time, they were no longer fighting against their own emotions. They were finally walking alongside them. Meanwhile, your own heart had continued its journey of healing. The person who once questioned every silence had become someone who trusted their own worth. You had learned that true strength is not found in chasing people who are uncertain. It is found in remaining kind without abandoning your own peace. You stopped measuring your value by someone else's choices. Instead, you began measuring your life by your own growth, your own courage, and your own ability to keep moving forward with hope. That quiet confidence became one of the most beautiful changes of all. Listen carefully because this is the turning point. Sometimes two people must grow separately before they can truly understand what they once shared. Sometimes distance reveals lessons that closeness could never teach. Whether this story leads to reconciliation or simply to two stronger hearts walking different paths, one truth remains unchanged: genuine love leaves people better than it found them when they choose to learn from it. That is the real transformation taking place here. Not the ending of one chapter, but the beginning of wiser hearts capable of loving with greater honesty than ever before. My beloved child, as this chapter comes to a close, the future is no longer being written by fear, regret, or silence. It is being written by growth, truth, and hope. The road ahead is still unwritten, but one thing has become beautifully clear. Both hearts have changed. Both hearts have grown. And somewhere beyond today's uncertainty, a new chapter is waiting to begin. One built not on assumptions or hidden emotions, but on courage, understanding, and the quiet belief that whatever is truly meant to remain in your life will never require you to lose yourself to keep it. What happens next will reveal the final choice that only a heart transformed by love can make. My beloved child, don't skip. Listen carefully because the story has reached its most emotional chapter yet. Stay till the end because what happened next changed everything. After months of carrying regret in silence, your soulmate finally reached a moment where they could no longer pretend that life had moved on. Every path they chose somehow led them back to the same realization. It was never about forgetting you. It was never about replacing you. It was about discovering who they had become after making the decision to walk away. The answer they found was not what they expected. They discovered a version of themselves that had everything they thought they wanted, yet still felt incomplete because they had ignored the one thing their heart had always needed: honesty. One quiet evening, they stood beneath a sky filled with fading light, watching the sun slowly disappear beyond the horizon. As the world around them grew darker, something inside them became clearer than ever before. They finally admitted that the life they imagined after leaving had never truly existed. The peace they were searching for could not be found in a different city, a different routine, or different people. Real peace had always depended on facing the truth they had avoided for so long. That realization filled their heart with both sorrow and gratitude. Sorrow for the time they had lost, and gratitude because it was not too late to become a better person. Listen carefully. This changes everything. For the first time, they stopped asking, "Why did this happen to me?" Instead, they began asking, "What was this experience trying to teach me?" That single question transformed the way they saw every painful memory. They realized that every tear had carried a lesson. Every lonely night had strengthened their heart. Every regret had pointed them toward a deeper understanding of love. Instead of becoming bitter, they slowly became wiser. Instead of allowing disappointment to close their heart, they chose to let it become more compassionate. Don't skip because something huge is waiting for you. They began noticing how much you had changed them without ever asking for recognition. Your patience had taught them to slow down. Your forgiveness had shown them the quiet strength of kindness. Your honesty had become the standard by which they now judged every conversation in their life. They understood that your influence had remained long after the relationship changed. It was woven into the person they were becoming. No matter where life took them, a part of your kindness would always remain inside their heart. As another week passed, they found themselves smiling at memories that once brought only tears. They remembered the laughter you shared, the dreams you spoke about, and the simple moments that seemed ordinary at the time. They realized those ordinary moments had become their greatest treasures. It wasn't the grand events they missed the most. It was the quiet conversations, the peaceful silences, and the feeling of being completely understood without needing to explain every emotion. Those memories reminded them that genuine love often reveals itself through life's smallest moments. Stay till the end because what happened next changed everything. One morning, they looked into the mirror and barely recognized the person staring back at them. Not because their appearance had changed, but because their heart had. The fear that once controlled every decision had begun to disappear. In its place stood someone willing to be vulnerable, willing to apologize, willing to accept whatever outcome honesty might bring. They understood that courage does not guarantee the ending you hope for. It simply gives your heart permission to live without regret. Meanwhile, you continued walking your own path with quiet dignity. The pain that once seemed impossible to carry had become part of your strength. You no longer waited for someone else to complete your happiness. You had discovered peace within yourself. You learned to appreciate your own journey, your own growth, and your own resilience. Without even realizing it, you became the kind of person whose light shines from within rather than depending on the approval of others. That inner peace became your greatest victory. Listen carefully because this changes everything. Your soulmate finally understood that genuine love is never about possession. It is about appreciation. It is about respecting another person's heart, whether they remain beside you or continue walking their own path. That realization removed the last traces of selfishness from their heart. They no longer wanted to hold on because of fear. They wanted to choose love because it inspired them to become their best self. That quiet transformation became the greatest miracle of all. My beloved child, as this chapter comes to an end, both of your journeys are moving toward a future shaped by wisdom instead of regret. The road ahead is still unfolding, and no one can see every turn before it arrives. But one truth remains clear: hearts that learn, grow, and choose honesty are never the same again. Whether life brings a heartfelt reunion or simply the peace that comes from understanding, neither of you will leave this story unchanged. The next chapter will reveal the moment when every lesson, every tear, and every act of courage comes together to show that even after heartbreak, hope still has the power to write a beautiful new beginning. My beloved child, as this chapter comes to an end, both of your journeys are moving toward a future shaped by wisdom instead of regret. The road ahead is still unfolding, and no one can see every turn before it arrives. But one truth remains clear: hearts that learn, grow, and choose honesty are never the same again. Whether life brings a heartfelt reunion or simply the peace that comes from understanding, neither of you will leave this story unchanged. The next chapter will reveal the moment when every lesson, every tear, and every act of courage comes together to show that even after heartbreak, hope still has the power to write a beautiful new beginning. My beloved child, don't skip. Stay till the very end, because this is the final chapter, the moment where every unanswered question finally finds its place. What happened next changed everything. The long nights of uncertainty, the tears that no one ever saw, and the silent battles fought deep within both hearts were never meaningless. Every step of the journey had been shaping two people into wiser, stronger, and more compassionate versions of themselves. Sometimes life does not change us through easy moments. Sometimes it changes us through the moments we never wanted to face. One peaceful morning, your soulmate finally accepted a truth that had been waiting patiently inside their heart. They realized that leaving had never brought the happiness they imagined. It had only revealed how deeply your kindness had touched their life. They understood that genuine love cannot be measured by perfect timing or flawless decisions. It is measured by honesty, respect, gratitude, and the courage to appreciate someone while they are still part of your story. The regret they carried was no longer something to hide from. It became the lesson that helped them become the person they had always hoped to be. Listen carefully, because this changes everything. Instead of living in the past, they chose to live with purpose. They decided that whatever happened next, they would never again allow fear to silence their heart. They would speak honestly. They would value the people who stood beside them. They would protect trust instead of taking it for granted. Those promises were not made to impress anyone. They were made because true growth begins when we stop pretending and start living according to the lessons life has taught us. Meanwhile, your own journey had quietly become a beautiful story of healing. The person who once wondered why everything happened had become someone who understood that every experience carries a purpose. You learned to love yourself without conditions. You learned that your kindness was never a weakness. You discovered that waiting for someone else's approval could never replace the peace that comes from believing in your own worth. Every difficult chapter had slowly transformed your pain into wisdom, your fear into confidence, and your uncertainty into hope. Don't skip, because the next moment became the most meaningful of all. Whether your paths crossed again or whether life gently guided each of you toward different futures, there was no longer bitterness between your hearts. There was gratitude. Gratitude for the memories that shaped you. Gratitude for the lessons that helped you grow. Gratitude for the love that, even through heartbreak, taught both of you what truly matters. Sometimes the greatest gift another person gives us is not a perfect ending but the courage to become a better human being. Stay till the end, because something beautiful happened next. The heavy weight of regret slowly disappeared. In its place came forgiveness, first for yourselves, and then for each other. Forgiveness did not erase the past, but it released its power to control the future. Peace quietly replaced resentment. Understanding replaced confusion. Hope replaced fear. Both hearts finally discovered that healing is not about forgetting what happened. It is about carrying the lessons forward without carrying the pain forever. Listen carefully. The greatest miracle in this story was never about proving who was right or wrong. It was about two people discovering that authentic love always leaves a positive mark on the soul. Whether it leads to reconciliation or simply to personal growth, genuine love teaches patience, humility, compassion, and resilience. Those gifts remain long after the difficult moments have passed. They become part of the person you are destined to become. My beloved child, if this story has found you today, let it remind you of one simple truth: never allow disappointment to convince you that your love was wasted. Every act of kindness matters. Every sincere word matters. Every moment you choose compassion over bitterness shapes your future in ways you may never fully see. Continue moving forward with confidence, protecting your peace while remaining open to the possibilities life still has waiting for you. As the final page of this journey gently closes, both hearts look toward tomorrow with renewed hope. The tears have become wisdom. The silence has become understanding. The fear has become courage. The ending that once felt impossible has become a new beginning filled with peace, gratitude, and emotional freedom. No matter where the road leads from here, both of you now carry hearts that are stronger, kinder, and more prepared to recognize genuine love when it appears again. Thank you for staying until the end. Remember this: the most beautiful endings are often the ones that inspire a new beginning. Walk forward with hope, treasure the lessons you have learned, and never forget that your value has always existed within you. The future remains unwritten, and every sunrise brings another opportunity to choose love, truth, kindness, and peace. This chapter is complete, but your story is only just beginning.